Anthophilic dismantalization. The process of dismantling a group by means of direct attack and even elimination of the leader. The word anthophilic has its roots in the word anthophila, which is the scientific term for bee. Wild bees cannot survive without their leader. Once the queen is dead, the entire colony will therefore be vulnerable and extremely susceptible to death. This was the very same tactic that has been used on black people in America ever since the very beginning of our captivity under the European. After your leaders are gone, they will then use the tactic of controlled opposition, which is the process of new leaders being set up in the original leader's place. It may seem that these leaders are for the people, but on the contrary, they are being initiated by an anonymous group like the government or even the elites.
Somebody come get her, she's dancing like a strip.
Miley Percocet, Miley Percocet.
Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 M's in my bank account. Yeah, in my bank.
Yeah. Fuck him, then I get some money. Yeah. Fuck him, then I get some money. Yeah.
Ride with the mob, Hamdulillah. Check in with me and do your job.
Black leaders. When you think of them, you might think of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, or Angela Davis, or even the Black Panther Party. But these are leaders from the past who were either killed or dismantled for what they had every purpose to stand for. The big question is, does the Negro of America still have successful leaders? The answer is yes. We do actually still have successful leaders, but to whom is their success going? Their success is not benefiting our people at all. However, it is directly advantaging the oppressor. These so-called leaders that are set up today are leading black people in so many negative directions. The very definition of a leader is the person who leads a group, organization, or country. The black leaders of today command and control other so-called black people under their position, not using direct orders, but indirect messages. Many black celebrities such as singers, actors, rappers, and athletes are merely puppets set over our people to convey the idea that the Negro is good for one thing and one thing only: entertainment. During American slavery, many wealthy slave masters would often get their slaves to perform and entertain other wealthy whites. It all comes down to money. Negroes wanting to make money for their oppressor equates to cooning, and cooning is an actual industry. It was and is to this day a major economic factor. If a black person today wanted to become famous and trending and gets lots of money directly from the oppressor while influencing the minds of the people, they must first join the cooning industry. Once you have joined the cooning industry, you will then become a puppet. All of your movements and actions will be controlled. If you don't give the industry what they want, then you won't get what you want, and that's money, folks. They want rappers who will rap about gang violence, violence in general, drugs, materialism, and sexual pleasure, a lot more so than they want rappers who rap about unity and fighting for each other. You could even start cooning so hard that you start to say things that are completely oblivious to your people's oppressment.
Recently stirring controversy on Fox Sports when he said he personally doesn't see racism because so many of his fans are white.
I thought that was clearly a message that there was no such thing as racism.
There was a lot of backlash from people about that. Would you change it, what you said, or you still feel the same way? What's your thought on Black Lives Matter?
What is it? What do you mean?
The idea is that there's this movement called Black Lives Matter, thinking that the rest of America didn't seem to understand that Black Lives Matter.
It just sounds weird. I didn't know that you put a name on. It's not a name, it's not whatever. It's somebody got shot by police for a reason. I am a young, black, rich. If that don't let you know that America understands black matter these days, I don't know what it is. Don't come at me with that dumb man. My life matters, especially to my
They want black male actors who are willing to sacrifice their manhood and emasculate themselves, either by wearing a dress, showing their butt, or playing homosexual roles in general. If not a feminine role, he will get a house slave role, where he is in an intimate relationship with a white woman. They want black female actors who are willing to lose their womanhood and emasculate themselves, either by being angry, fighting one another, or cussing each other out. If not a masculine role, she will get a bedwenching role, where she is in an intimate relationship with a white man. Switching the gender roles is one of the most mentally destructive things that our oppressors have done to us. A true leader cannot be a coon though. Neither would they be the least concerned about making stacks and bands. Take Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner for example. They were willing to make sacrifices and work hard for the liberation of their people. About 80, if not 90% of all black children in the United States can tell you more about the rappers and celebrities than about actual important historical figures of our people. They can tell you more about Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, Lil Uzi, and 21 Savage than our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Music and media isn't the only vessels that are systematically designed to mislead our people. Religion is another factor. Deuteronomy 28 verse 64 states that we will serve other gods, even gods of wood and stone. Perhaps the wood symbolizes the cross of Christianity and the stone symbolizes the Kaaba stone of Islam. Both of these religions were enforced into our minds by our oppressors. All religions are detrimental to our race. Any religion or belief that goes against the so-called Negro's true God, Yah, the Almighty One of our ancestors, is completely vain. Christianity is a doctrine of mistranslated and misinterpreted scriptures from our scrolls, with added and subtracted books. Islam is only a religion Negroes accept just to get out of Christianity. They think that they should convert to Islam because it is the African religion. However, it was forced on Africans and African Hebrews by Arabs in the 7th century, just like Christianity was forced on American Hebrews in the 15th and 16th century. Speaking of Africa, Pan-Africanism is another factor leading our people astray. The original Pan-Africanists, such as W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, were Freemasons, which immediately makes them sell out coons. Marcus Garvey was a Pan-Africanist Christian who did not recognize his people as the children of Israel, but did attempt to get all so-called blacks living in America to go back to Africa. However, he also never stepped foot in the African continent, but did visit Europe and permanently moved to London. W.E.B. Du Bois ironically died in Ghana. However, Du Bois believed in integration and that blacks could only be successful through institutions created by the white man. Marcus Garvey believed that blacks should form separate communities and go back to Africa. Du Bois wanted Garvey thrown in prison, and that's exactly what he got. 21 years after Garvey died in London on June 10, 1940, Du Bois moved to Ghana and died there in 1963. He was tired of being ridiculed and called nigger by whites, even despite his great success in white America. They are not the only ones, however. Many black leaders have connections to Masons. That includes athletes, pastors, and even Hebrew Israelite camp leaders. The main people of this Pan-Africanist conscious community today have some sort of connection to a fraternity or sorority, which are both Greek Masonic institutions. Pan-Africanism is based on the belief that all melanated people in the world are actually indigenous to Africa. Although the out of Africa theory may or may not be true, we must still be aware that the doctrine was created by a white man, the notorious Charles Darwin, to further push his openly racist evolution theory. Pan-Africanists also believe that all black people in America come from Africa. However, that information was originally fictional pseudo-history, introduced by another white man, anthropologist Melville Sean Herskovits. He completely reversed reality and history by writing a fictitious and allegorical book called The Myth of the Negro Past. This book was published in 1942, and it was considered as fiction for a very long time. The book stated that all Negroes in America came from Africa in the 14th century by a route known as the Middle Passage. Prior to this allegorical book, there was no documented proof in recorded history that clearly stated that all American Negroes were originally taken from Africa. In fact, the 1828 definition of the word American in the Noah Webster's dictionary is, quote, a native of America, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of the European born in America, end quote. This means that there were already many dark-skinned people here in America prior to the slave trade. Understand that the media, which includes television and music, is not only meant for entertainment, but also communication. Just like during slavery, while our ancestors worked in the fields, they would sing as a form of communication. Most of these slave songs were codes for escape routes and rebellion plans. The words communication and command are just alike. The songs that we can hear on the radio and internet today often have a pretty nice instrumental, which makes the song catchy and draws the mind into a mental vault. This can only work on the mentally weak. While in the mental vault, the mind is under lock and key. It will be extremely difficult for the mind to think outside of the vault at the time of listening to the music. Eventually, the song will become fixed into the subconscious mind. If you keep applying that song into your everyday life, even after it has become fixed into the subconscious mind, then the song will then become a part of your everyday thoughts, then words, then eventually actions, whether the song be negative or positive. When little black girls see their favorite feminine role models being over-sexualized, that will affect their young, naive minds in a sexual way, a way that their precious minds have no business being accustomed to. When they see beautiful black female actors constantly fighting on so-called reality television, that will affect them in an aggressive way. When little black boys watch grown black men on TV shooting and pimping, that will affect their young minds as well. Back during segregation in the US, our people did have it much harder, but in a way, we also had it better. We didn't murder each other as much, we stood up for each other more, and most importantly, all of our businesses were black owned, and we were actually thriving. White people didn't like that. Therefore, there was still a lot of hate and terrible racial injustice at that time. So one man by the name of Michael King, later Martin Luther King, had a frankly odd way of solving the problem: integration. He wanted to fight racial injustice, and by doing that, he felt he would have to get all races together and we would all get along. But many people do not know that the Civil Rights Act was funded by Nelson Rockefeller in 1965, a year after the act was passed. Rockefeller donated $25,000 to King's Gandhi Society for Human Rights. This was done to cover the tax expenses related to the suit and to channel needed financial support for the nonviolent civil rights movement. Most American schools were successfully integrated by 1966. Unfortunately, integration had two negative side effects on our people. Number one, we now lack unity, whereas during segregation, we owned our own businesses, schools, and somewhat of a military system, and we knew how to stand up and fight for each other. Now our communities are infested with gangs, drugs, and prostitution like never before. Number two, we now rely on the white man more than we did when we were segregated, which was an open door to feminism, which dismantled the power structure of the so-called black family. Martin Luther King started to see the flaws in integration. That's why he said, quote, "I fear I may have integrated my people into a burning house," end quote. And, quote,
"I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare."
Malcolm X, however, always saw the flaws in integration and did a much better job of getting Israel the hard, cold truth. Therefore, he was assassinated 3 years before Dr. King. Back to Martin Luther King. During the last 2 years of his life, he began to leave his dream and began to gain consciousness of reality. He didn't get killed because of his dream. He got killed because he woke up out of his dream. For the same reason, the Black Panther Party was dismantled. The Black Panther Party was a revolutionary socialist organization founded by Bobby Seale and Huey Newton in 1966. It was founded for self-defense, but over the years, it began to gain more and more power until eventually they were looked at as a serious military system for blacks and were seen by whites as a threat. To the whites, they had to be stopped immediately. In many instances, the FBI used other so-called black people to take down the Black Panthers as a form of infiltration. The best example of this would be the case of William O'Neal. O'Neal was a spy, traitor, and FBI informant consecutive to the assassination of Fred Hampton, the most prominent Black Panther at the time. O'Neal was initiated into the Black Panthers and gathered intel on them. He reported back to the FBI and gave them all the information on Fred Hampton, like where he would be on the night of December 4th, 1969. The police then showed up to his house and brutally murdered him in his sleep, right next to his pregnant wife. About 20 years later, August 22nd, 1989, Huey P. Newton, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party, was shot several times in the head and laid dead in the streets of Oakland, California, in a puddle of his own dark red blood. After that, our people started to learn a lesson. If you bite the hand that feeds you, you will be put down. If you don't believe me, look what happened to Michael Jackson. Look what happened to Bill Cosby. Look what happened to all these other people who began to speak out and began to help their people even after these times. Their reputation was ruined. This is a people who were shackled in chains but called their necklaces chains. They were beaten by a whip but called their cars the same. Out of everything they called us in slavery, savage is a name that a lot of us will claim. And it's a shame that we don't even know our real name. But y'all don't see, y'all don't want to listen to me. They took our history, put us in captivity. Are you sure you're not in slavery? You have to go to school for your master's and college for your master's degree.
I just told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
It is wrong for you to think that that man died because he had a dream. That man was a revolutionary thinker in the last days of his life. Some of his inner circle turned on him. He was hurting that his own staff, some of them disagreed with him. Then churches denied him. They didn't want him in their pulpit. Now it's easy to put his picture up and talk that crap about how you love him. You a damn liar. If you loved him, why did you let the writers of history write him down as a dreamer and pacify you with all these streets and boulevards named after him? But if you read his life in the last 2 years of his life, he met with my teacher. They had a beautiful discussion, February 66. I don't know what they talked about, but I know my teacher. He loved Dr. King, but he showed him prophecy. He showed him where we are to separate from this enemy and not be integrated into him as Moses didn't separate or integrate the children of Israel into Pharaoh. He even agreed that separation might be better for us for a while. Like a people sick or diseased, you take them out of the public and you heal them. And then you send them back to the world.